Alright, what's going on, guys? Here back with a different take on the Kashtira strategy. Now, I know yesterday I kind of went over the more pure variant, a one that was closer to the YCS winners kind of list, since they were not incorporating, from what I know, like any other like engines or anything like that. So I thought today kind of take a look at a different variant. The only one I saw who was in the top 16, I think there's only one last team that we don't know what they were on. The only person that was on an adventure-based strategy was Shinping, and they were on the adventure kind of Kashtira, and I think it makes a lot of sense. You're not normal summon reliant. I mean, in fact, all of your Kashtira monsters, you're either special summoning or the the normal summon doesn't in no ways usually matter too much. Yes, with kind of birth you're able to get the level 7 on there with a normal summon, but you can also like special it back. So I mean, you're not super reliant on it. And the one that usually matters is like the unicorn special summon anyway, so it doesn't really impact your plays too much. And then with Illegal Knight and the Griffin Rider being level 7s, it does kind of give you a little bit more extenders if you need them, and sometimes you do end up drawing them, but overall, it's a very similar idea. I mean, you're playing 3 Fenrir, 3 Unicorn. You kind of want to max out on those, just because those are the ones that are kind of going to start your plays and things like that. Still only need 2 Rise Heart. Again, it's not something that you're going to be normal summoning just too often, just because, you are going to pretty often not see Fenrir Unicorn, things like that. And then the final one that we're playing, you've cut down on a Scareclaw Kashtira. Really just need the 1 in this build. It'll extend your plays a little bit, but it's not super necessary to have more than 1. We do need the 3 birth. Obviously every turn, the ability to just bring back a level 7, just to kind of continue your plays, hopefully go for game. You definitely want to be seeing this every game. Again, like I said, you can still normal summon the level 7 because, if you, exceed it away or something like that, anything like that, you're just going to be able to bring it back if you need to activate its effect. But, shouldn't be too big of an issue. We just play the 3 field spell plus the 1 terraforming. Obviously this again is just going to help make the deck more consistent. Where it's a little bit different is you've cut down, and I saw that Shinping was doing something with this where they were only playing 2 of this card. I think that makes sense if you're just trying to go to a 40 card build. It is a good card, when you're able to search it. It's not something that you're, I guess maybe wanting to brick on too many of, so I think 2 makes sense just because you're going to be able to see it so often, either through drawing Unicorn, drawing the field spell. You have ways to get to this, so I think going down to 2 is totally fine, especially because we're incorporating a whole other engine. And then just the 1 big bang. So now we don't play the Ogre to search this, but again, that's fine. This is really just an option for if you draw it. It's great, but you're not really needing to play more than the 1. Moving on, you're kind of maxing out on everything that you need to for the adventure engine. The 3 water enchantress. Now this could be one of those things where because just for one thing or another, you want to max out on the water enchantress. It's kind of where right, you can sometimes like side 1 or so out if you need to, just because they can add back from the graveyard. So but to start, we want to be seeing this, so we want the 3 copies of that with the 3 copies of right, and then 1 of each of the level 7s, and then the kind of 2 bricks that you have to play. So there are some things you're obviously playing the minimum of, but you need those in the deck. And then there's just some options for game 2, game 3 that you can side out if you want to see less copies of. And then kind of finally, you're going second, just kind of interruption cards or consistency cards. We've got the 3 Ash. That's obviously going to be, just good against a lot of decks, plus it still stops the Book of Eclipse. Your Prosperity, again, deck is super consistent, but, This is kind of more necessary in this build than any other, just because, you are incorporating another engine, so sometimes you won't see one of either, so you just need to dig a little bit deeper for it. Plus, this deck is built to, obviously go first, but, if you need to go second, we've got the Dark Ruler plus Evenly in the deck, so I think this still surprises a lot of people to main deck, but I think at this point it honestly is the right choice, because if you go first, great. Having this in hand is not going to overall interrupt this deck, or it's not taking away from a, extender that you may need. But, if you go second, that's where, you're just not, you're opening yourself up to win a game that you might not otherwise have won because you decided to main deck. So I think it does make a lot of sense to kind of main deck this, at least early on, until maybe the format plays a little bit more out and more things are incorporated. But right now, I think it does make a lot of sense. For the extra, I think you should still be on the Intis. Just having the ability to send that with Prosperity and add a bag underneath a Rise Heart does kind of give you an additional interruption on your opponent's turn, so I think that is something that is still worthy playing. And you're not really needing to add too many more things for the Adventure Engine. There's nothing really you're adding in the extra deck for it. The only other thing is in this build, we've got the Goliath. And I saw that this was being done by Shunping, and it makes a lot of sense just because it's a similar thing to Intis. They weren't playing the Intis, but I think that would have been a worthy inclusion. Because Goliath does have the ability to make whatever, Exceed monster it's attached to. They can't be, it should be destroyed, if I'm remembering right. It can't be destroyed by card effects, so it gives you an additional level of protection for your Rise Heart, and it just makes it that much harder to deal with. So I think that really is a pretty nice one to add as well. Util Nijir to Shang Ira. Obviously, this is going to be the main thing that just blocks your opponent from playing. Obviously, some hands you're going to be able to end on 2 of them, and, have blocked out 8-9 zones, and your opponent's not going to really be able to do much of anything. The 2 Arise Heart, again, you just kind of want to protect yourself from any mirror matches or anything like that where they could banish it, so definitely just need to be running 2 of those. And then, same with 2 of the Zeus, you want to avoid them being able to banish your 1 of, so playing the 2 just ensures that they're going to go after something else at that point. Still got the Big Eye. I think that it's still really good in this deck. Obviously, as we kind of see the format play out, that might fall away, but for now, just the ability to kind of have a permanent steal is pretty good. Still going to play the one number 89. Still an overall really good card. I don't think you're maybe going into it too much. It obviously depends on, what your hand looks like, what your opponent's playing, things like that, but it is still obviously a worthy card to play. And that's going to be the same thing for the next 2, the Flare Metal is going to be really good for time, just if their opponent's already low on life points. It's going to really limit the amount of cards that they're going to be able to play. And then the Dark Armed, this is just, Dark Arm from the extra deck. You can just obviously detach a card, destroy a card, so definitely is a good card to play. This deck doesn't play Nibiru or anything like that, but if you were to incorporate something like Nibiru, it's an easy way to get rid of the token. But, with the Adventure Engine, you obviously have the ability to bounce the token as well. So, you have a few different kind of, ways to interact there. Now, this side deck is pretty interesting. Obviously, Ghost Bell, it's a pretty interesting thing to side deck, but it does, in a way, give you more interactions with a lot of the other top decks. It's going to be able to prevent them from sending things back to their hand, deck, or anything like that. So, and then also any special summons from the graveyard. So, makes sense in some matchups, but also makes sense why it's not being main deck, because it's not going to hit everything. The Dark Hole here is pretty big. It's just a way to clear your opponent's board, plus it's just another way, including with, I guess I didn't finish going through the links. The Linkuriboh and the Dark Hole are really good there for clearing Ibli and things like that, so definitely why you want to run that. And then just kind of finishing out, the Donner is also really good for getting rid of any Nibiru, because you can target itself plus another card that your opponent can, or another monster that they have, and you can pop them both. And then most decks just can't out the Soldier of Chaos, so you're able to make it with a level 7, and you really kind of go into this when your opponent has Dimensional Barriered you, and it can't be destroyed by opponent's card effects, and a lot of decks are just not going to have a out to it. So really good card, a little bit niche, but in the event that you're not able to make your Exceed plays, something that I think a lot of people aren't going to be prepared for. Now you do want some back row interactions, so I think Cosmic here, just being able to get it out so they can't have any, like any recursion in the graveyard. And then same thing with like Hey Trunade, just being able to put it back into their hand and then just kind of go about your day, building your board. That's just going to be able to kind of prevent them, because it's non-destruction, so you're not having to worry about, them being able to reset anything with a lot of like the Labyrinth cards and whatnot. So just putting it back into their hand without any threat to that, and then, they're not going to really be able to play much further there. And I think Solemn Judgment is really smart right now in this deck, just because you do need some form of spell trap negate in case your opponent has, something like a Dark Ruler or anything like that that you wouldn't normally be able to interact with that would get rid of your cards. Having this here is just going to give you that extra layer of protection. And then finally, again, a pointer can be anything. It can be a third copy of Hey Trunade. It can be another one of that you want, or something like that. I just still think a pointer is a really good card to run, just because you get free knowledge, essentially. As long as you can leave a card in your hand, you can know what your opponent's hand looks like. And it's going to be good in the hands where you're not zone locking them 8-9 times. Obviously that's the goal, but this kind of just allows you to see what your opponent has, and so which cards that you want to interact with. So I still think it's overall a good card to play, and that's why it's at 1. But yeah, so this is the list. I kind of like it a lot. I personally really enjoy the adventure engine, so just kind of being able to throw it into any deck is something that I'm going to personally prefer. I do find it interesting that not as many people are on this build, when it does answer a lot of the questions. I've seen a lot of people just play regular Kashtira, and then, and like I did put it in yesterday, they put just a Baron in the extra deck. It's kind of a lot to go into, you're having to rely on, essentially drawing an Ash Blossom plus a level 7 and then making the level 10 Baron. So people are worried about Nibiru, but they're kind of going about it in a weird way, wherein you can just play the adventure version, and then you have your Griffin and you have your answer to Nibiru right there. So I think, obviously neither is wrong. The regular Kashtira won the YCS this past weekend, but I think that this deck isn't getting, or this version isn't getting as much notice as it probably could. So yeah, let me know what you think down below, if it's a version you'd rather incorporate, or if you want to continue playing regular Kashtira, and why. I am genuinely curious, what people think about the two different options, and I will, see you there. I'll definitely come back. Whole kind of week I want to do deck profiles for the top decks, so I think I'm going to try and look at a Sword and Soul profile tomorrow, so I will see y'all then.